Imagine a car so strange that even Chrysler's own designers called it polarizing. A machine that looked like it belonged on another planet, yet somehow became a sleeper hit on American roads. But behind its quirky shape lies a story of rushed engineering, hidden rivalries, and a gamble that could have sunk Plymouth forever. In 1961, the Plymouth Valiant wasn't just another compact car, it was a bold, almost desperate move to keep Chrysler in the race against Ford's Falcon and Chevy's Corvette. With its bizarre styling, unconventional engineering, and a debut clouded by whispers of internal conflict, the Valiant divided car buyers right down the middle. Some saw it as futuristic genius, others as a design disaster. But the truth behind its creation, and the controversies it sparked, might just change the way you see one of the strangest American cars of the 1960s. 1. The alien in the showroom. When the 1961 Plymouth Valiant first rolled into dealerships, it didn't just turn heads, it stopped people in their tracks. This wasn't the sleek chrome cruiser they were expecting from Plymouth. Instead, it had sharp creases, odd proportions, and that unmistakable shark nose front end. Chrysler's design chief, Virgil Exner, called it Forward Look, but some critics had a different name, Forward Flop. The public's reaction was split. Some loved its boldness, others thought it looked like a spaceship crash-landed in the middle of suburbia. But here's the twist, that radical look wasn't just about style. It was hiding a very practical engineering decision, one Chrysler didn't exactly advertise at the time. 2. Engineering in disguise. Beneath that unusual sheet metal, the 1961 Plymouth Valiant was hiding a secret weapon, one Chrysler desperately needed to win the new compact car war. The early 60s were a dangerous time for American automakers. Ford's Falcon was clean and conservative, Chevy's Corvair was quirky but accessible, and both were selling in huge numbers. Plymouth couldn't just bring out another small car. They needed something that stood out, and hopefully stood up to Detroit's giants. That's where Chrysler's engineering team went all in on a brand new slant 6 engine. This wasn't just any 6-cylinder, it was tilted 30 degrees to the right, lowering the car's hood line for better aerodynamics and giving the Valiant a lower center of gravity. It was lighter, more fuel-efficient, and built to run forever, a direct answer to complaints about thirsty V8s. But here's where things got interesting. To fit this engine and keep costs down, the Valiant's proportions had to change. That sharp, forward-leaning nose? It wasn't a random design choice. It was the only way to package the engine without redesigning the entire front suspension. Chrysler kept this fact low-key in their ads. They wanted buyers to think style first, not engineering compromise. But inside the company, there were whispers. Some execs hated that the car's looks were dictated by mechanics, not by pure design vision. The tension between the engineering and styling teams was so strong that some insiders later admitted they thought the Valiant might flop before it even reached the streets. And yet, the Slant 6 proved so tough that it started earning the Valiant a reputation no one expected. But before it became a reliable daily driver for millions, the car had to survive something that nearly killed its public image before it even started selling. 3. A rocky debut and the PR nightmare. When the 1961 Plymouth Valiant rolled into dealerships, Chrysler was hoping for applause. Instead, they got confusion, and in some cases, open laughter. The styling, which designers had called European-inspired, was unlike anything on American roads: sharp creases, exaggerated curves, and that dramatic forward-leaning grille. Some buyers saw it as bold and futuristic, others said it looked like it was designed in the dark. Worse, early press photos didn't help. Chrysler's own promotional shots made the Valiant look even more awkward, especially in certain colors where the styling cues clashed instead of blended. Dealerships reported that potential buyers would walk in, take one look, and ask, "Do you have anything less weird?" But styling wasn't the only hurdle. The Valiant faced a small but potentially devastating mechanical hiccup. A batch of early production cars had minor transmission linkage issues that caused sloppy shifting in the optional push-button automatic. While it wasn't a widespread defect, the rumor mill spun out of control. Rivals pounced on it, whispering that Plymouth's space-age compact was already unreliable. Chrysler scrambled to fix the problem quietly, replacing affected parts and training dealers to reassure nervous buyers. But by then, the Valiant had picked up an unwanted label, the strange-looking car you weren't sure you could trust. And in an era where first impressions sold cars, that was dangerous. Still, there was one group that refused to write the Valiant off, and they would become the key to its unexpected survival. They didn't care about the looks. They didn't care about showroom gossip. All they cared about was how the car performed when pushed to the limit, and the Valiant was about to shock them. 4. Winning over the Skeptics. Just when it seemed the Valiant was destined to be the quirky oddball sitting unwanted in dealership corners, something unexpected happened. People started to drive it, really drive it. And that's when opinions began to change. Under its controversial skin, the Valiant had a secret weapon, Chrysler's brand new Slant 6 engine. It wasn't a fire-breathing V8, but this 170 cubic inch inline 6 was mounted at a 30-degree angle, allowing for a lower hood line and a more efficient intake setup. It ran smoother, sipped less fuel, and was built like a tank. Mechanics quickly learned they could run these engines hard, day after day, without them breaking a sweat. And here's where it gets interesting. A few journalists and even some amateur racers realized the Valiant's compact size, solid handling, and durable engine made it a surprisingly capable performer. At a time when most compacts were underpowered and flimsy, the Valiant felt stable at highway speeds and didn't fall apart after a few thousand miles of abuse. One early endurance test saw a Valiant driven thousands of miles across harsh terrain with barely a hiccup. Another saw a group of mechanics push the engine to ridiculous limits, over-revving it and skipping maintenance, just to see if it would fail. It didn't. In fact, it kept running long after everyone expected it to give up. Word started to spread. It might be ugly, but it'll outlast anything in its class. And that was enough to spark a slow but steady shift in public perception. People began to realize the Valiant wasn't a flashy fashion statement, it was a survivor. But Chrysler wasn't just going to rely on word of mouth. They had a plan to prove the Valiant's worth on the world stage, and it involved sending it somewhere no one expected a compact American car to go. 5. The rally that changed everything. In 1960, Chrysler decided the Valiant needed something bold, something that would silence critics once and for all. So, instead of relying on glossy ads and dealership promotions, they did something unheard of for an American compact car. They entered it into one of the most grueling endurance rallies in the world, the Mobile Gas Economy Run, and later, even tougher international events. Now, these weren't cushy car shows. We're talking thousands of miles of punishing roads, extreme temperatures, and brutal driving conditions. The kind of test where even the best engineered machines could crack under the pressure. For the Valiant, this was a sink or swim moment. And it swam hard. In these events, the Valiant didn't just finish, it won. Not in the fastest car on the track sense, but by proving itself as the most fuel-efficient and reliable in its class. It was like watching the quiet, awkward kid in school suddenly win the marathon while everyone else gasped for breath. One particularly famous run was the Round Australia Trial, a rally notorious for destroying vehicles halfway through. Out of dozens of competitors, many of them rugged 4x4s, the Valiant crossed the finish line battered but still running strong. Drivers and mechanics were stunned. It wasn't supposed to survive, let alone perform well. But there it was, proving the doubters wrong on a global stage. Chrysler's gamble paid off. Newspaper headlines began calling the Valiant the little car that could. Suddenly, it wasn't just another compact, it was a symbol of American engineering grit, capable of holding its own against the toughest tests the world could throw at it. And back home? Sales started ticking upward. Slowly, sure, but now buyers weren't just curious, they were convinced. The Valiant had a reputation, and Chrysler knew exactly how to capitalize on it. 6. The Style Wars and Special Editions. By the mid-1960s, the compact car battle wasn't just about performance anymore, it was about personality. Ford had the Falcon, Chevy had the Nova, and each year the designs got sleeker, flashier, and more aggressive. Chrysler knew that if the Valiant wanted to stay in the fight, it needed more than a reputation for reliability, it needed curb appeal. That's when the design team stepped up. Out went the more conservative lines of the early 60s, and in came sharper bodywork, sculpted fenders, and those sweeping chrome accents that caught the sunlight just right. Chrysler started adding features you'd expect in bigger, pricier cars, two-tone paint jobs, stylish grilles, even upscale interior trims. But they didn't stop there. To grab attention, Chrysler began releasing special editions that blurred the line between practical commuter and stylish cruiser. There was the Valiant Signet, with bucket seats, extra chrome, and a more upscale vibe. Then came the Barracuda. Yes, believe it or not, Plymouth's iconic fastback muscle car started life as a variant of the Valiant platform. Same bones, completely different attitude. These versions weren't just dressed-up econoboxes, they were proof that the Valiant's sturdy engineering could handle a little swagger. Buyers could now choose a dependable daily driver, or a flashier, sportier version that made the neighbors take a second look. And here's where it got interesting. This blend of style and substance started pulling in two kinds of customers, the practical-minded folks who wanted a car that lasted forever, and the younger crowd who wanted something cool without breaking the bank. The Valiant was quietly bridging a gap in the market that Chrysler's rivals didn't see coming. But as the 60s wore on, the muscle car era was exploding, and the Valiant was about to get caught in the middle of a horsepower arms race it wasn't built to fight, at least, not at first. 7. The sleeper that nobody saw coming. By the late 1960s, American streets were rumbling with big V8 engines, racing stripes, and cars that looked fast even when parked. The Plymouth Valiant, on the other hand, was still playing the role of the dependable, modest daily driver. But under the radar, something unexpected was happening. See, Chrysler engineers and a few very creative dealership mechanics knew the Valiant's compact size and sturdy build made it the perfect candidate for a little mischief. And by mischief, I mean shoehorning in engines that had no business being in a humble economy car. The first sign came with the Valiant V8 options, small blocks at first, then bigger 273 and 318 cubic inch motors that gave the car serious street credibility. But it was the A-body mopars with the legendary 340 V8 that turned heads. Lightweight plus big torque meant the Valiant could outrun some factory muscle cars without the flashy paint or hood scoops. This created the ultimate sleeper, a car that looked like your aunt's grocery getter but could leave a Camaro wondering what just happened at the stoplight. Street racers loved it because nobody took the Valiant seriously until it was too late. Even in sanctioned drag racing, certain Valiant builds became known for embarrassing cars twice their price and horsepower rating. And then there was the Duster, which spun off from the Valiant's platform in 1970. The Duster was sportier, flashier, and aimed directly at younger buyers, but hardcore moper fans still saw the original Valiant as the stealthier weapon. This wolf in sheep's clothing phase gave the Valiant an entirely new identity. It wasn't just a budget car anymore, it was a blank canvas for anyone who wanted to build something fast, light, and a little dangerous. But just as the Valiant was earning respect on the streets, the 1970s brought a wave of changes that would test its very survival. The quiet legend. The Plymouth Valiant was never meant to be a star. It didn't scream for attention, it didn't win beauty contests, and it didn't have the marketing hype of its muscle car cousins. Yet somehow, it carved out a legacy that's still respected today, a car that could be everything from a frugal family hauler to a quarter-mile assassin. It survived multiple redesigns, oil crises, tightening emissions laws, and a constantly shifting auto market. While many flashier names came and went, the Valiant quietly stayed in production for nearly 2 decades, proving that you don't have to shout to make history. Today, it stands as a reminder that true automotive legends aren't always the loudest or the most glamorous. Sometimes, they are the dependable underdogs, the cars that work hard, adapt, and, when the moment's right, surprise everyone. The Plymouth Valiant was exactly that, a humble hero that earned its place in the story of American motoring. If you enjoyed this journey into the forgotten legacy of the Plymouth Valiant, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another hidden gem from automotive history. Until next time, keep your engines running and your wheels turning. This is Gear Ghost, signing off.